Hello, I'm Jenna. If you don't know who I am and you're receiving my newsletter, that's kind of weird, but it probably means we talked about real estate at some point, or you've signed up for my newsletter from following me on social media, which means you probably do recognize my face. Thank you. I had a goal for all of 2023 to produce newsletters every quarter, and I failed. I humbly failed. However, I'm working with a virtual assistant who keeps me on track with those types of goals and is happy to help me with the back end to make all these things happen. There are so many parts that go into running a successful real estate business, and I have other creative projects on the go. So, I thought it would be funner if moving forward I do a video newsletter, which of course comes with all of the text bits that kind of recap what it is that I talk about in the video. But if you're the kind of person that likes to listen and or watch versus read, then I got you. And if you like to read, that's fine. Pause this, go ahead and read. It's the same content, just delivered to you in two different ways. This feels more in flow with how I show up. I find the words just like flow out of my mouth better than out of my fingers. I don't know. Doesn't matter. This is what I feel like doing, so this is what I'm doing. One of the lovely things about being self-employed is you get to do what you want. So I want to make a commitment publicly for accountability. I'm going to send you newsletters. I'm going to send them each quarter, end of March, end of June, end of September, end of December in 2024. They're already in my calendar. And they're going to kind of always contain the same type of information. So I want to give an update about the market trends, specifically in Campbell River and surrounding areas. I service like Sayward to Mount Washington. Sometimes I step outside of that net that I cast for special people, special properties, or when I have extra capacity. So in the times where I do hand off clients to agents who work those other areas, then they're taken care of, I'm taken care of, we work in together, and everybody's happy. So I have really beautiful connections for the entire island and honestly the majority of BC. If you ever yourself are looking for a real estate agent, or someone who is, by all means reach out to me first and I can happily connect you with someone who actually knows what they're doing. Oh, and I service Quadra Island, sometimes Cortez, depending again on my capacity. So I want to, that was one of the things, right? Market trends in Campbell River and surrounding market areas. That's one of the things this newsletter will consistently deliver to you. I often will feature a listing or a property that I have for sale. You won't see that today because I don't have any listings right now. I sold everything. There will often be some local community information. It might be about events. It might be updates to do with certain developments, or like big commercial pieces of land that are for sale, things like that. Maybe some drama once in a while. I'll always make market predictions for the next quarter. So today I will give some predictions for what I think the first quarter of 2024 might look like. And also just share it can, different types of information that are relevant. So it might have, sometimes I might talk about assessed values, how to dispute your assessed value if it's way more than what your actual property value likely is. I might share information about policy changes in the real estate industry that impact clients and, government policy changes for housing in general. I got lots of that to talk about. I may also talk about mortgage rates and finance, the economy, inflation, stuff like that. Nerdy analytical things, because that's how I roll. If you've never heard me talk before, you'll notice that, I'm going to try not to swear, but I'm definitely going to go on tangents and be a little bit ranty because that's my personality type. And I'll never, ever promise to be 100% accurate because a lot of the things that I share will be my own perspective and my own opinion. So by all means, if you know more about something that I'm talking about, tell me, teach me. I'm always learning. I'm always happy to be corrected. And I love perspective from all angles. So don't be shy. I'd love to hear what you're thinking about any of the topics I touch. So let's get started. Today is the middle of December. It's December 13th. 2023. Christmas is coming so soon. I love this time of year. And before I actually speak about this last quarter we've just been through, I want to talk about 2023 at large, because there were a few big things that happened that didn't necessarily happen in the last quarter. So, first one being at the very end of 2022, I believe it was the end of November, the provincial government announced that they were going to introduce a law which would override our strata law, and it would prevent the restriction of rentals in strata properties. What this means is townhomes and condos, there are other strata properties, but generally in Campbell River, we're talking about condos and townhomes and maybe patio homes. They were allowed to get together as a complex and have a vote. And if 75% or more of the owners agreed that they did not want any of the properties to be rented in the complex, they could put a rental restriction in place. The BC government has said no more. We are not allowed to restrict rentals of strata properties. That is a very big deal. At the same time, the BC government also said that we were no longer allowed to create age restrictions beyond 55 plus. So you're still allowed to have a 55 plus complex, which is senior focused, which is beautiful. And we will no longer be able to do like 19 plus, 18 plus, 45 plus, any of those other like anti-little kid age restrictions. So it's either everybody or it's 55 plus. That's the only age restriction allowed in BC. And you are not allowed to restrict rentals. Even if every single owner wants to say no, it still can't be an actual bylaw restriction. So that was a very big deal. It happened at the end of 2022. Sure enough, in 2023, we saw a lot of this. I predicted this. We saw a lot of those little old condos, the ones in Campbell River that are kind of specifically across from the Seawalk down on our South Island Highway. We saw a lot of those come on the market that are now allowed to be rented, which is really cool. So loved seeing that. We also have some Airbnb changes. So this is a spicy topic. And I'm happy to talk about spicy, but there are, if you want to follow me on Instagram, I spent a lot of time talking about this when the changes were first announced a couple of months ago, but I just want to touch on it here as a topic to not forget about, because it too is another very big change in real estate ownership. So we now have fines as large as $50,000 for not obeying the rules. Airbnb units need to be licensed. The Airbnb management companies like Airbnb, VRBO, those types of things, they need to actually data share with the provincial government, who then shares with local government to make sure that these rules are being enforced, which is a very big deal. And then also the Airbnb units in communities with populations that exceed 10,000 people need to be located only in primary residences. So in Campbell River proper, not in our regional district, but in the city of Campbell River, what that means is if you are hoping to own an Airbnb property, or you already do own an Airbnb property that you don't live in, that property is coming under change. Like, this impacts you greatly. If you were hoping to buy a property for that purpose, don't, not unless you plan to live in it. So those are very big changes that really impact lots of local people. And I really see a trend on the impact being most impactful. That's a word I'm using way too much today. With entrepreneurs who are trying to build some kind of like retirement fund for themselves. They're often like young-ish families, I'll say, 45 years old and younger, who are, they're working and they're building businesses. They don't have a retirement fund. They don't have a pension. And so they're trying to set themselves up for later by owning properties for that reason. And this is really affecting them, especially for those who have bought them in the last 5 years and invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into renovations. Counting on this Airbnb income, like, they're hurting. This is a big deal. So again, my Instagram has a whole bunch more information about that, but that's a very new change. Lastly, the provincial government has been speaking about potential zoning bylaw changes, which would override municipal law for how many units you're allowed to have on each residential lot. And this would impact, if they decide to go ahead, it will impact all communities with a population of 5,000 people or more. So definitely Campbell River. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, sweet, I can build a carriage home. I can build an alley home. I can build a shop with a suite. I can do an up-down, turn my house into an up-down duplex and I'm not disagreeing. That can be very exciting. Although I'm also very curious how this impacts our community at large. What are we doing about sewer and water? Sure, in the city of Campbell River, we have access to those services. Of course, one of the costs of developing one of those rental units on your lot would also be the cost of sewer water. Sure, but what about the rural areas? What about places that have septic fields and wells? Should we all have, 3 families living on 1 acre with 1 septic field? What does that do to the groundwater? It gets kind of complicated. So that's tricky. And then for the city of Campbell River and outlying areas, what are we doing about parking, garbage removal around the street parking? Oh my gosh. The hockey rink, ice time, schools, to say that number of houses is our only issue, let's just fix that with allowing people to have more housing on their land, really doesn't look at the whole broader picture. And I could be misunderstanding this, but I feel for our local government deeply because they've spent so much tax money, so many resources, so much time and energy developing local bylaw, official community plans. We have a whole planning department. And they intentionally plan for certain areas to grow to certain densities. And then if this is overriding that and they're left to pick up the pieces, it just feels like a shit show, in my opinion. Said I wasn't going to swear, but I did. So that's very interesting. I look forward to seeing how that rolls out in 2024. Even if just for the drama, I look forward to that too. So again, before I specifically talk about the last quarter, I also want to thank you. I had such a beautiful, successful year in real estate. It wasn't the year that I sold the most houses by any stretch, but it was a damn good year. I met all my goals. I got to serve the most amazing clients. I got to build my client base further. I got more reviews on Google. I got really supported in some of my bigger vision creative project goals. And I'm just so grateful to work in this community, to be part of this community, and to have your trust. So thank you for being here. It means so much to me. Okay, let's talk about the last quarter. So right now, today, there are 87 houses on the market, just single family houses in Campbell River. That does not include outlying area. I'm just talking about the city of Campbell. And there are 53 houses, townhomes, I call them strata properties, on the market today. Those numbers are very similar to December 2022, which is interesting. And I was doing some math on what percentage of the listing price are things selling for. And for the last 3 months, this last quarter, it's been pretty consistent at 98%, which means that houses are selling for 98% of their listed price, which is interesting. That's pretty good. Over the last 3 months, they've been taking approximately 50 to 60 days, so 2 months average, to sell. So that's from the day they're listed to the day the sold sticker's actually on the lawn and all the buyer's conditions have been removed. We call that a firm sale. So from list date to firm sale, it's taking approximately 2 months, and that's been pretty consistent over the last quarter. I will say one thing I did notice as a difference was the 2 years prior, in November, there had been more listings coming on the market than there were this November. So we had only really about half as many new listings hit the market in November 2023 when I compare to November 2021 and November 2022, which is interesting. I think people are just not that excited about the real estate market right now. It's kind of boring. The rates are shitty. It's not like the most amazing time to sell. So moving into that quiet winter, it doesn't surprise me that people are just not, busy listing their properties. I'll also say, that's a good thing because our inventory is not inflated. We don't have a ton of stuff on the market, which is going to keep prices pretty consistent for now, which is great. What else can I tell you? I can talk about predictions for the first quarter of 2024. and by the way, this is a prediction. This is personal opinion, and research and having conversations with other professionals. That's where my prediction comes from. That does not mean I'm going to be right all of the time. I don't hold a crystal ball. If I held a crystal ball about what the market was always going to do, I could just play the market and never sell another house in my life. So I'm also in the game with all of you, right? Boots on the ground as a homeowner, as an investor myself. So I do predict the rates will likely stay about the same. The last 2 times that the Bank of Canada has announced they're going to keep their rates the same. Keep in mind, the rate hikes we saw over the last little while have been the most aggressive rate hikes that the Bank of Canada has ever done. And they did it intentionally. They did it to curb the rate of inflation. So inflation was set to be off the charts, and that would impact us so much more than just having more expensive money to borrow. So they jacked up the interest rates for borrowed money, which then calmed down that inflation rate that was like taking off really fast. So it's working. It's for the greater good, and it's working. It still hurts. I was in a variable mortgage. I recently locked in because I could not handle any more changes. I needed the security. If you're still riding variable, I get it. I almost kept riding it too. It's just tricky. I've been owning real estate since I was 19. I'm 36. So I've had a pretty wonderful run of borrowing money for a pretty inexpensive price, all things considered. And that has changed now. Now I really understand the cost of borrowing, and that I would say has actually put a deeper respect for cash into my soul. And this is kind of a side tangent, but I warned you. So one thing I think is really interesting and of value to my own personal life, and I'm seeing it all through clients that are kind of my generation, is we've had access to really cheap money for a really long time. So I've used my home equity to buy other houses, buy recreational property, buy land, pay off my credit cards, go traveling, do renovations, do new construction. I have tapped into my equity almost like this bank account many times over my life. And it's been awesome. It's been the largest contributor it's been a door opener, let's call it that. And I have a beautiful relationship with money, and I'm so grateful for being on this journey with it. So right now it's a bit of a wake up call. I look at my equity and I'm like, ooh, I could use you, I could take my children to, I don't know, Hawaii for a month. I could get rid of my terrible countertops that are tile that I hate. I could totally buy more real estate. However, it has me pausing because I'm like, ooh, do I really want to do that when it's 6% interest? I don't. The monthly payment on borrowing that money is now it's a thing, versus when it was 1.5%, it was $30 a month. Who cares? Here's your new countertops. So it's really, truly been humbling and has helped connect me to the true value of cash and the actual expense of borrowing. So I appreciate that about it. Okay, back to my predictions. So I do think the rates will stay about the same. I already noticed buyer confidence kind of slowly increasing. As soon as the rates slowed down, people felt more secure, more confident, more certain in the market staying about the same, which is great. So buyer confidence is directly related to the volume of sales, right? So I do see that. I do see buyer confidence coming back. It already is. I do think that we will still have lots of people relocating to the island, and specifically to Campbell River. Campbell River has been an attraction, yes, to people coming from the city, Greater Vancouver area, from the Okanagan. I see most of the relocations being families coming here from other areas in BC. I've actually worked for a couple of clients coming from the Kootenays, which is really interesting because I spent 10 years living there. So I do expect that to continue. Look where we live. I'm sorry, but it's beautiful. We have the most amazing community. We have nature. We have access. It's relatively affordable when we compare it to other communities on the island and other areas in our country. So I do see that being pretty consistent. A lot of those families that are relocating here are coming from more expensive markets. So they're actually coming with large down payments and they still have lots of purchasing power. And yeah, they are affected by those interest rates, but it's not a hurdle for them because, they have a decent down payment coming in. So there's that. I think our inventory will stay pretty balanced or maybe even be a little bit lower than it was in 2023. But I think overall 2024 is going to look and act on paper a lot like 2023 did. I think. Happy to be wrong, but that's my prediction. Okay, I want to talk about who I see buying real estate right now. So like I said, people are relocating, but this isn't really relocation time of year. This is get curious time of year. This is watch the market have conversations time of year. But this spring, I think in the spring, we will see people getting prepared for relocating before the school year would start in September. I do see people buying investment properties right now. So those with either with a large down payment, I would say 30 or 40% cash down payment are buying right now. And they're not locking in long-term to the rate because they know in a few years those rates will come down. And then that property is going to cash flow and they're okay with it just covering itself for now. And I'm seeing investors who are looking for that property to run at a deficit. So for personal tax reasons, there are benefits to having your investment property run at a negative cash flow where it's costing you a little bit of money each month. So I'm seeing financial planning with an accountant telling you to do it and you structuring it that way. And I'm seeing you coming in with large amounts of cash as down payment so that you can actually get enough rent to pretty much cover the cost of owning the thing. Because when the rates are as they are and you have like a 20% down payment on an investment property, it's not going to cover itself with rent. That's just not really what we're working with right now. But those with a broader vision who can really zoom out and widen their perspective to a 10-year or even 5-year plan for that investment property, they can see that it's going to pay off. So it's like a little bit of pain, long-term gain. And I love human nature, right? We all love to be comfortable. We all love to do what everyone else is doing so that we feel alike other humans. So when everyone's sitting on their hands, watching, feeling uncertain, it's actually often a very advantageous time to jump in and do the thing, assuming that you're in the right financial situation personally to do so. So that's cool. I like that. If you're curious about it, reach out and I'll guide you. And I'll help refer you to people that can help you design a plan that's specific to you. Okay. Locally, remember we were told that McDonald's was going to be built on South Dogwood at the old Coachman location. That's a no. I heard from a city counselor that's no longer happening, which I'm so thankful for. I was not happy with it becoming McDonald's at all. Curious what you'd like to see it become. I personally would love for it to be a grocery store. I live downtown right by the museum and I can't walk to a grocery store. It's so weird. Not that I would really walk to there either. And I guess QF is just up the hill. Apparently QF's turning into Save-On. Anyone else hear that? Actually, it's not rumor, it's real, it's happening. But I wonder when. I do think we're supposed to get a grocery store in Jubilee Heights in a couple of years. But there haven't been any like firm announcements about that yet, but that would be cool. So what do you want to see? I'm curious. At the old Coachman site. I hope it's food related. Yeah. Okay. And then Discovery Harbor has had so much change, right? Now we have a Winners, we have a Shoe Warehouse, we have PetSmart, we have Yisk. I noticed those parking lots are so full and there are more people out and about walking around shopping down there. I love seeing that. There are still some vacant sites down there. I think it could be a really cool time to move your business into that area. If you are looking for a new location for a commercial business or startup space, there are some vacancies. It's cool. It's really cool to just see some stuff changing. I personally will always try to find the smallest, most locally owned store I can to do my shopping, but there are circumstances where I will be buying things from a big box store. And I'd still like that big box store to exist in my community versus leaving to go to Courtenay or Nanaimo, because at least I'm supporting the employees who work on those locations by shopping there. Curious if you've been using those places, what you find, what you think, tell me. What else? What else can I tell you? Let's talk a little bit about mortgage finance, and then I think we'll wrap it up. So one of the we talked about rates and how much they've changed, and unless you live under a real estate rock, you've noticed that change happening. Something that I was watching a colleague speak about on their Instagram today is reverse amortization or negative amortization. And it's something that I haven't personally lived, but I have clients living it. And what it is, it's when if you have a variable rate mortgage and you have committed to a certain payment, let's say you borrowed $500,000 when the rates were 2%, and the payment was $2,000 a month, and you checked the box that said it's not really a box, but just for the example, you checked the box that said, leave my payments the same regardless to what happens to the interest rate. I don't want my payments to change. Well, the rates have changed so much that $2,000 payment that was initially principal and interest is now not even covering the interest. So the bank has been just tacking on more years to your loan because there's more and more interest incurred, but you're not actually paying off that interest each month with that $2,000 payment. So what was a 25-year mortgage is sometimes looking like an 80-year mortgage. It's crazy. So it's a very interesting situation to be in. There are options. If that's you and you know what I'm talking about and you're stuck in that little vortex, talk to me. Not because I can fix it, but I am a good listener and I have really beautiful colleagues that can absolutely help you with your options. So there's that. There's also, I'm a little bit concerned about what happens to all the people whose mortgages are going to come due for renewal in the next 18 to 24 months. If you stretched yourself to afford a property and you did a 5-year fixed mortgage at a low rate and you still own that same property and you're coming up for renewal, that mortgage payment is about to be so much more once you go through that renewal than it is for you now. So if that's you, if your payments are like low and cushy and you have lots of space and that you're just like riding the gravy train of that, fair, okay. But still check that renewal date. When does your mortgage come up for renewal? And how different is your rate when you signed that mortgage versus what the rates that are offered today? If you're riding the gravy train and it's cushy and you have some extra income, you might want to make a plan for that to soften the blow of that change. And if you're already stretched by your mortgage payment, reach out because there are options, there are ways to plan. Again, I have really beautiful colleagues that can help you navigate your options, and avoiding that until your mortgage comes due is going to bite you in the ass and it's going to hurt. So be smart, plan ahead, ask for help. I think that's it. I think that's all I had to share. Again, thank you so much for listening and or reading, for being a client and a colleague. I really love my job. I really love this industry. I really love being able to serve you. So I appreciate you so very much. And I hope you have a beautiful holiday season with your friends and your family. I will chat to you at the end of March in my Q1 2024 newsletter. That's my accountability. Have a good night, day, quarter, holiday.